Before I get into the essay, I want to ask you something. What was the job that you wanted when you were younger? Well, here's a story of how I first wanted to be an astronaut for NASA until I wanted to work for an IT company. Well, when I was much younger, I guess around 6 or 7 years old, I wanted to be an astronaut because it seemed very cool to be one. I used to read all about space in my book about astronomy. I think to the 7-year-old me, going to space is an authentically cool thing. It still is. Going to space just seems so fascinating because of all the things you could discover. But I know the main reason that I lost interest in being an astronaut is learning about how perilous it is. I have optically discerned many exhibitions and read many articles about many people dying in space. And I always see many movies that show people drifting off into space, endeavoring to find their way back to the ship. And probably one of the other reasons for me losing an abundance of interest in going to space is the fact that it is very hard to be one. Now, the next job I wanted was to get the job of a doctor, categorically a surgeon. Now, why would any 8-year-old in their right mind would ask for this job? Well, the motive for me in getting this job is the amount of money you could earn. The reason I unearthed information regarding how much you could earn came from my dad. When I was around 6 or 7, my dad needed to get some surgery in his knee because I remember he cracked a bone there from landing in the erroneous way while playing basketball. Now, for this surgery, we paid a hefty price just to fine tune his broken knee. From this information, I realized that the surgeon gained a ton of money just by making a small cut in my dad's leg and putting some sort of metal. So on the way home, I told my dad what I wanted my job to be. He then told me that heart or brain surgeons earn way more than his surgeon. So after around 5 minutes, the job I wanted escalated into a brain surgeon. But I realized I will only earn money if someone else is in critical condition. But I conjecture the 8-year-old me didn't genuinely care, so this was the job I wanted until I turned 9. When I turned 9, I started to think more about not wanting people to get sick. So instead of a brain surgeon, I wanted to be a lawyer. While I don't really have a clear recollection of why I wanted to be one, but I think the main reason is obviously the pay. I realized I could earn more without getting anyone sick. I didn't really care at that time if I had to put people to jail, but I have seen someone say that you can earn a huge amount of cash, especially if you're proficiently adept at this job. Me wanting this job lasted for about 2 or 3 years until I heard that a lot of lawyers get killed for making someone go to jail. So, I immediately wanted to think of another vocation plan. I didn't want to die early. So, after some time, I've seen many architects that earn a lot. My dad has many friends that are architects, and they earn a lot of money just by building a house. It seemed profoundly intriguing to me that you could design houses, and that there are many famous architects that make fancy looking structures. But then, I also learned that there's a lot of people who want this job. And I realized that a lot of people that I know also wanted this job. So it made me rethink a different vocation. I didn't want to pick a job that has such a large number of people in it because of the fear that there might not be a market for me in the near future. Then I got it. I would be an engineer. I discerned those guys can earn lots of money, and my dad additionally had a classmate who was an engineer, and now he is very affluent. He now owns 2 resorts and a lot of houses. I also discerned that engineer's job was to manage, construct, or engineer a certain object. It seemed normal for a 12-year-old to be an engineer. I think an engineer seems um, a nice job for me. This stayed for about 1 year until around 3 months ago. 3 months ago, I exhaustively contemplated my vocation plan. Nobody asked me to, but for some reason, I just celebrated about it. In the span of 2 months, I had around 5 different jobs in mind. I will be verbalizing about it on this paragraph. If you have described or remember, most of my motives for picking the other jobs was the pay and safety. But now I have added a new variable to my job picking algorithm: comfort. For the past 12 years, I just wanted to earn lots of money, but I never genuinely cogitated how comfortable it would be. So, this was probably one of the biggest factors that would um, continuously change my mind in picking a job. And surprisingly, this has a bigger say in my future job than the pay. Now, getting back from the topic of an engineer, I thought that recently I just thought that I should just have a mundane 9 to 5 desk job. Now, this wasn't for the comfort or pay. I don't know why, but I just became intrigued with doing a job like this. I wanted to work in a desk, maybe on the computer, but I never genuinely had it in my mind to move up positions. Maybe because of my old mindset of why I should stop doing my best. Now, I might sound like a profoundly slothful person, but hear me out. If you always do your best, people will always be expecting more from you. But if you abstain your full potential and they expect something more, you would be able to distribute more because you refrain your full potential. This was my mindset until my dad told me that people that do their best are the ones that usually amend. This mindset barely did anything to change my old mindset because I didn't really mind. Now I just sound like a slothful guy who plans to go nowhere in life until I realized that it might not be enough for me to survive. Because if people get paid like 500 pesos per day, and that equals to an average of 11,000 per month because I don't plan on working on weekends, I thought that in the future, due to inflation, I might not be able to survive with that kind of money. I additionally wanted to be able to save money so that I don't need to work when I'm supposed to be retired. Then it hit me. I would have a job very congruent to my dad's. Now you might not know what kind of job my dad is in, so I will tell you. With what I recollect, he's the manager of a service provider of credit cards called Card Geek Marketing. He's earning a decent income and he doesn't need to do much work because his brother worked for him and is currently doing most of the jobs that he used to be doing. It seemed to be an authentically fascinating concept of him having like 200 agents, and all he has to do is to find a way to make these 200 agents to be able to market more credit cards. Conventionally, he does this by setting goals of credit cards sold and giving extra income to the people that get these goals. Now I remember that this is a nice vocation if I pursue it. It doesn't require a hard school, doesn't require too much of an investment. So, the main things you would need in getting this job would probably you have to be good with people and be good with encouraging them. Plus, I already have an advantage because I get to experience what my dad does in the office because sometimes he brings me there. Additionally, my dad is able to preserve income while working in the office, which is precisely what I'm probing for. But then, coming back to the thing about preserving money, I contemplated an even better vocation that allows me to preserve more money. But isn't that comfortable? Being a seaman was my incipient job in mind, because if you think about it on a deeper scale, seamen earn a lot of money without having to spend too much. Plus, you get to go around the world. Probably the only downside to the job is the work is conventionally very hard and kinda dangerous. Like if you're in an oil ship, there's a chance for your ship to be glommed by pirates. Even a chance for it to blow up because of the oil it's carrying. The main reason on why I know a lot about seamen is the fact that my dad's brothers were seamen a few years ago. They told me that you could go up in position just by working for a few years. And you might even be the captain of that ship. But then going back to the three main motives for me picking a job, which is safety, income, and comfort, woefully, this only covers income, because it certainly isn't that comfortable and safe. Now this leads me to my next possible vocation. Around a month ago, when me and my family emanated from Batangas, we dropped by the place where most of my dad's siblings live for dinner. On the rooftop of one of the houses, I saw one of my dad's siblings. I saw him on his laptop and I asked him what he was doing. He told me he was fine-tuning a building plan. Just in case you don't know what his job is. He's a civil engineer or something. I don't have a. I was very surprised that he was doing it at home because it did seem very comfortable just being at home and earning a decent quantity of cash. With what I know, engineers don't usually work at home. So, this is where most of the comfort comes in. Since the commencement of quarantine, I already prefer to stay home. Not because of the virus, but I relish being in the house. When I told this to my dad, he told me that if I wanted to work in the house, I should just work for an IT company. And when I told him, when I thought about it, I thought, yeah, an engineer isn't supposed to be working in the house. So I would rather pick a job that is normally done in the house. Now this is how I went from wanting to be an astronaut to wanting to work for an IT company. To this day, I still have many different ideas in my plan for my career, but I just can't seem to pick one. Well, why not get all of them, you may ask? Well, that was also in my mind for some time, but then I realized that I wouldn't be able to master all of them. Now, this struggle with picking one job was already hard enough, but I'm also in the same quagmire with sports. Through my 13 years of existence, I also did many different sports, and got good at each one but not too good. I'm able to play basketball, table tennis, soccer, billiards, pool, badminton, swimming, Muay Thai, and even Taekwondo. Not only for sports, but also for music. I can play decent flute, guitar, violin, and even ukulele. But my main instrument is piano. It also happened to be the first instrument I have ever learned to play. Now, we might be drifting off topic from my conclusion paragraph, but I guess all I wanted to say is we might not know what our profession or sport or future would be, but I know that only one entity in this entire universe knows God. So I think the best thing I can do now is to ask for help to guide me into the best profession that I could have.